to once you recruit them. What do we do with them after we recruit them? It's incumbent on me and the staff and others to train them properly, to coach them properly, to teach them how to get along with people, to teach them how to behave, to how to de-escalate. You know, we could throw in a lot of other things that are going on, from opioids that I'm not sure if anyone's ever dealt with somebody high on that, high on flocka, heroin, all of those things. So now we've got to reprogram ourselves from dealing with this person that is angry, that's not drunk or high, which seldom, to a person that is having some type of manic episode. So now not only they get to a scene, but they've got to, in their mind, discern, how am I going to approach this person? Am I going to approach him this way? Or I know the last time we encountered him, he was violent. The last time we encountered her, she fainted. All of these things go into those taking the test.
Indian River County, when James Noble died 2 weeks after being shot outside his home by a Vero Beach police officer responding to a possible prowler in 2011, the 70-year-old's family called his death an unjustified use of force. According to police reports, when Noble saw the officer, he pulled a .45 caliber handgun from his waistband and pointed it at the officer. Noble was shot in the chest after he failed to put the weapon down when ordered to do so. The officer was later cleared by a grand jury. Noble's family told a different version of events in a federal lawsuit filed against the police department, and later dropped, that accused the officer of improperly firing his weapon. Physical clashes such as this between the public and local law enforcement either preceded or caused the deaths of 29 people in the past 16 years, state and court records show. 20 fatal encounters on the Treasure Coast involved police gunfire, later determined to be justified. It's too soon to know if Sunday's shooting death in Gifford of Altiria Woods, 21, by members of the Indian River County Sheriff Office Special Weapons and Tactics Team, also will be ruled as a justified use of deadly force. Records show her death is the first fatal officer-involved shooting in 2017 on the Treasure Coast. Sheriff officials have said Woods was a bystander caught in an early morning firefight with law enforcement during a drug raid that also wounded a deputy and ended with the arrests of 2 father and son career criminals. When these fatal incidents occur, most often during traffic stops or domestic disturbances, they can anger a community, launch criminal probes or prompt change. They also put a spotlight on the agency and its officers' conduct. But they rarely spur the lawsuits agencies defend against most, and cost taxpayers the most to resolve. A months-long TCPOM.com investigation into police encounters dating to 2000 shows that while Treasure Coast law enforcement agencies spent $1.6 million to settle claims related to 6 deaths involving police, they spent more than double that amount to settle claims accusing police of aggressive behavior. Deadly Encounters Indian River logs 7 deadly police encounters. Specifically, those agencies spent $4.2 million of taxpayers' money, with nearly $1.4 million in Indian River County defending themselves from people who claim to be victims of arrests involving excessive force, falsified reports, unfounded charges, or mistaken identity, the investigation found. A Vero Beach family in 2012, for example, accepted $30,000 from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office after armed SWAT members in search of drug dealers mistakenly entered their home. Officers expecting to serve a warrant instead startled a couple and their children, including a 5-month-old baby, according to a lawsuit. Police professionals and lawyers who specialize in civil rights litigation said, considering the hundreds of thousands of calls for service responded to each year, it's not unusual for agencies to be sued most often for perceived wrongs during encounters that didn't involve deadly force. They also agreed that with 2, sometimes 3 officer-involved fatalities a year, the use of deadly force on the Treasure Coast is exceptionally uncommon. For mobile and tablet readers, click here to see the graphic. Managing risk. Indian River County Sheriff Darrell Lohr said with 315 sworn officers responding to 150,000 calls for service a year, defending against lawsuits is an inevitable part of managing on-the-job risks. There have been mistakes made by law enforcement, absent intent, but just mistakes, and we see that, he said. Our philosophy is simple: with frequency comes efficiency. We preach that every day, because we believe the more frequently we do a particular task, presumably the more efficient we will be. At the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, Attorney Adam Fetterman said if deputies do their jobs correctly but become targets in a lawsuit, we're going to stand up and defend our positions. It's really important our people know if we are sending them out to do this dangerous, potentially life-threatening job, we will support them in doing so, Fetterman said. And when they do their jobs right and use the tools and training we've made available to them, that we will protect them. Sheriff's offices are sued more than city police departments, and court filings show some agencies have no history of civil rights complaints, including Fellsmere and Sebastian, and Sewell's Point in Martin County. The Vero Beach Police Department has been challenged in court twice over civil rights violations and prevailed both times, including the wrongful death suit filed by Noble's relatives. Constitutional behavior. Historically, local law enforcement officials settle civil lawsuits rather than take a case to trial. Not all complaints result in payouts though, and records show juries have sided with police agencies accused of abusing someone's civil rights. Last year, Lohr's office set a new high by paying $500,000 to Craig Kowaleski, 39, who sued after being wrongly arrested in 2013. The Vero Beach man accused a deputy of using falsified reports to arrest him on a child neglect charge that later was dropped. Lohr, who disciplined the officer with a 60-hour suspension, said had Kowaleski's lawsuit been tried by a federal jury, the outcome could have been worse. Part of the settlement agreement in the Kowaleski case clearly indicates that we did not show the liability, he said. Now had that gone to court, the outcome perhaps could have been different. On this particular case we all agree that it's a very expensive case, and all the factors have to go into play. Top payouts. Scroll down to see an interactive graphic detailing the top 5 payouts by Treasure Coast law enforcement. In federal court, plaintiffs' lawyers who prevail are awarded legal fees, which Lohr said was probably the largest factor in deciding to resolve Kowaleski's claim before it went to trial. The payout was the largest out of $1.4 million the Indian River Sheriff's Agency has spent to resolve 34 civil complaints since 2000. Settlements paid by area sheriffs come from a pool of tax money managed by the Tallahassee-based Florida Sheriff's Risk Management Fund, which insures most sheriff's agencies. Paying a claim, though, doesn't mean an admission of wrongdoing, and denying liability is standard in court filings. Kowaleski's steward attorney Guy Rubin, a veteran at pursuing civil rights claims, said such litigation isn't just to get money for a client, but to hold police accountable. If we didn't take these kinds of cases, you would never have the courts telling law enforcement what the appropriate confines are for constitutional behavior, he said. The courts make decisions, and those decisions are then the law of the land, and police, law enforcement agencies, are supposed to abide by those decisions. St. Lucie County investigation, fighting aggressive policing claims drive up taxpayers' costs. Criminal versus civil. One of Rubin's earliest civil rights cases resulted in a $1.8 million settlement paid by the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office in the 1996 inmate death of Anderson Lee Tate Jr., 22, who overdosed on crack cocaine he'd swallowed. After Tate's death, a deputy and a nurse at the jail quit, and one deputy was fired. A grand jury declined to recommend criminal charges. A sheriff's investigation determined that proper medical attention was not initiated immediately when Tate Jr.'s condition worsened. Rubin has long called for changes in the way many police agencies review incidents of excessive use of force. He's also questioned the role prosecutors play in determining whether an officer's actions were criminal. The system is stacked in favor of law enforcement and against getting indictments, whether by a state attorney or by grand jury, Rubin said. The only way you can interfere in that conflict of interest and make it fair is to have independent law enforcement investigate every homicide, and you have an independent prosecutor, who walks a grand jury through the process so that it's a fair outcome. Jeffrey Alpert, a University of South Carolina criminology professor who helped review the 2016 fatal Fort Pierce police shooting of Demarcus Emeter, said being cleared of wrongdoing doesn't mean there were no problems with the police conduct involved. Being acquitted of a criminal action doesn't dictate whether or not a civil wrong was committed, he said. A 20-year expert in police conduct, Alpert said reducing incidents of excessive force and aggressive policing has challenged law enforcement for decades. It has to do with who is selected to be a police officer, he said, how that person is trained, how that person is supervised and held accountable for his or her actions. Vero Beach Police Chief David Curry said his officers receive routine legal updates, especially involving defensive tactics, in-dash cameras, tasers, and other non-lethal weapons. Our officers are always learning, he said. We send them to classes, we send them to school, we utilize in-service training and we use the internet to disseminate information. There's so much more to know now than there ever was. Alpert, too, stressed the need for more rigorous psychological screening for officers that probes deeper before hiring and is updated routinely. We always talk about fitness for duty, because at 22 years old, you may be qualified to be a cop, physically, mentally and psychologically, he said, but at 45, your abilities may have gone down the drain, so to speak. Martin County investigation, defending aggressive police conduct in Martin comes at a cost. Deadly force. Chief Assistant State Attorney Tom Bakkedahl, who oversees all deadly force investigations for the 19th Judicial Circuit, said they see 2 or 3 incidents a year in Martin, St. Lucie, Okeechobee, and Indian River counties combined. Luckily for us we have had a relatively small number of deadly uses of force encounters, that resulted in a grand jury, he said. Now, if you're the mother or father of one of these people who dies during an encounter with law enforcement, that's a very large number. But if you put it in context of the hundreds of thousands of encounters law enforcement has with citizens on a monthly basis, percentage-wise it's infinitesimally small. Since 2000, St. Lucie County has had 16 fatal officer-involved encounters, Indian River has had 6 and Martin reported 7. Bakkedahl stood by the grand jury system used to review lethal force cases and pushed back at a charge that the investigative process is stacked in favor of law enforcement. The purpose of the grand jury is to provide a complete, independent oversight of the investigation, he said. These people are dedicated, they're invested, and they're independent. Often the questions they ask are very probing and they also expose general public misconceptions about how law enforcement operates or should operate. He said the nationwide assault on the integrity of law enforcement has gotten out of hand, and instead officers should be better paid, have the best equipment and be treated with respect. These are the people who are standing between us and anarchy, he said. People may have a particular opinion about law enforcement, but when somebody's coming through your window, the men and women in uniform in this circuit are the people you're going to call and want to respond to your house. Alpert added that by being polite, the public can help keep police encounters peaceful. You handle yourself properly and courteously, and even if you totally disagree with what the officer is doing, you deal with it later, he said. You don't deal with it on the streets. By the numbers. Top 5 legal settlements. For mobile and tablet readers, click here to see the graphic $900,000. Paid to the family of Craig Ferguson, 49, of Fort Pierce, who on June 19, 2006, drowned in the Belcher Canal, north of Fort Pierce after fleeing St. Lucie County Sheriff's deputies following a traffic stop. Ferguson's family filed a federal lawsuit against the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office and deputies Todd Meslin and Ronald Serafine, alleging the pair severely beat Ferguson after he was stopped for a traffic infraction. During a 2011 federal trial that ended in a mistrial, jurors were told the beating caused Ferguson to drown in the canal. An autopsy ruled Ferguson died of accidental drowning, but a second autopsy performed by an Orlando forensic pathologist revealed that blunt force trauma contributed to his death. The sheriff's office in its settlement denied any wrongdoing and never admitted liability. $877,669 went to Florida prison inmate Glenn Tuhey, 42, after he sued the Martin County Sheriff's Office and 5 deputies for malicious use of excessive force stemming from an October 26, 2003, incident in which deputies, thinking Tuhey had a gun, shot him 9 times after he snatched a woman's purse and led deputies on a chase from Port Salerno to East Stewart. The county's top prosecutor at the time cleared deputies in the shooting. Retired Martin County Sheriff Robert Crowder later said settling the suit was a business decision made to spare the expense of a long civil trial in federal court. In 2007, Tuhey was ordered to prison for life related to an attempted murder conviction for using a steel locker lid in a pillowcase to break a fellow inmate's face at the Martin County Jail. $750,000. Port St. Lucie paid the amount to settle a federal lawsuit filed by Kenneth Kennedy, who claimed excessive force after being shot by Port St. Lucie Police Detective Kevin Carmichael on February 25, 2003. The incident began when Carmichael arrived at Atlantic Coast Recycling in Fort Pierce to investigate Kennedy as a suspect in the theft of aluminum hurricane shutters. Kennedy arrived in his car and was accused of trying to run over Carmichael when the detective fired 3 shots at him. A grand jury cleared Carmichael of wrongdoing and Kennedy was left paralyzed. Records show the city admitted no liability in the case and stated Carmichael acted in self-defense. $500,000. The highest settlement paid since 2000 by the Indian River County Sheriff's Office stemmed from an abuse of power complaint. The payment went to Vero Beach resident Craig Kowaleski, 39, who sued after being arrested for child abuse in 2013. Settlement papers show the sheriff's office was not admitting any wrongdoing by paying Kowaleski, who claimed he was taken into custody by Deputy Michael Kavanaugh after the deputy entered the home without cause October 10, 2013. A sheriff's investigation concluded that Kavanaugh lied about an encounter with Kowaleski, and that cameras at Kowaleski's home verified his account. In an affidavit, Kavanaugh said he was dispatched to investigate a complaint about young children, ages 3 and 4, playing outside unsupervised. Kavanaugh said he saw Kowaleski asleep on a couch when he arrived at the front door, but investigators determined Kavanaugh would not have been able to see the couch from the front door. Prosecutors dropped the child neglect charge and Kavanaugh was suspended for 60 hours following an internal affairs review. $376,029. Paid by Fort Pierce to the family of Samuel F. Hare Jr., 49, who died 3 days after being tossed by off-duty Fort Pierce police officer Edwin Minton during a February 21, 2006, incident at Lawnwood Regional Medical Center and Heart Institute. Hare, who weighed 300 pounds and had a heart condition, called 911 asking to be taken to a mental health facility. While at Lawnwood, Hare became uncooperative and combative and reportedly kicked Minton, who worked at the hospital in a contract position. Minton applied a taser twice to Hare's leg and he stopped resisting, but he became unresponsive and was admitted in critical condition. Hare was taken off life support and died February 24, 2006. The day after the incident, former Fort Pierce Police Chief Eugene Savage said the taser shock applied was low intensity and in accordance with department procedures. Hare's mother, Mary Hare, who sued the department in federal court, claimed officers used unnecessary force.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago. And so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheep up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me, and I'm sick of it. So I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt-free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.